Let's see, this is one simple program. You can see here that these two lines will be the same as always. Now you have to think, you have to look at this particular. Okay, so let's start today's class with another concept of, or the subsequent or the related concept of classes and objects, and we'll try to understand that how we'll create some of the programs related to the class and the object. Now here in this particular example, we have one class which is called a student class. So what we have done is we have created the student class here. Inside that we have some private members, and you can see inside the private access specifier we have SID, which is called student ID, and name, student name. Okay, so what data we want inside the class? We want two data. One data is the student ID, means the roll number of the students, and second data is the name of the student. Okay, these two data I want inside the class. And what function I want inside the class? So I have a simple function, get data function, which is not returning anything, means its return type is void. And what it is doing, it is just giving a message to the user that enter the student ID and name. So, and it is taking student ID as well as it is taking name. Now after that we have another function called put data function. What it will do? It will just make sure to output the student ID and the name of the student. Okay, so it is a very simple program where with one function we are taking the data and we are putting inside the object, and in another function we are just taking the data of the object and displaying into the console. Now if you can see this particular program, so this is your class, right? Whatever I have highlighted is your class. Now here we have, as I told you, we have two data. So whatever data which will come inside the class, it is called data member, and the functions which we define or which we declare inside the class, it is called member function. So there is a concept of member function and data members. So what is the data member? Data member is nothing but the data which we define inside the class, that is called data member. The functions which we will define inside the class is called member function. Okay, so there is a concept of data member and member functions. Now let's go to the main. Inside the main function, we have created two objects, S1 and S2, of a student, of course. So S1 is a variable of which type? Student type. And what is a student? A student is a class. So S1 is nothing but the object. So the variable which we create of the class is called object. Here also S2 is called object of class student. Okay. After that, we have called the function. So we have called the get function, get data function with S1, and after that we call the get data function with S2, and then we call the put data function with S1 and put data function with S2. So what get data function will do is will take the data from the user. So two data will take, means two object data will take for S1 and S2, and will display the data what we have given by the user with the help of put data function. Okay, so if we'll execute this, how it works? So as I told you, the compilation of the program will be done from the first line of the program, but the execution of the program will be always done from the main function. Okay, so let's start from the main function. So this is the first line of execution that will be done. So when we'll run it, it will execute this particular line number 25. And what is this? It is creating two objects, S1 and S2. Okay, so let's create two objects, S1 and S2. So this is S1 and this is S2. So as I told you, whenever we create or whenever we declare or here we are declaring, whenever we declare the object, memory will be allocated to that particular object. Okay, some memory will be allocated. And what is that memory? Memory is nothing but inside the main memory, some memory has been allocated to S1 and S2 because S1 and S2 are the variable. But when we create the S1 and S2 and this is of class type, so these and what is the size of that particular memory? So the size of the particular memory is size of the member data. So what is the member data? Member data is S underscore ID and the name are the two member data. So what are the member data here? We have in S1 we have SID, and here also we have and another one is the name. Now for S2 also we have SID and here also we have name. So these two are the member data that will come inside S1 and S2. Right, so this will be done when we execute the first line, first line, this one, line number 25. Why this is the first line? Because as I told you, when we execute, it will execute from the main, and when we compile, it will compile from the first line of the program. Now what is the second line? So this execution will be done and this is the state after execution. Now come to the second line. It is saying that S1 dot get data. So when we are calling the function S1 dot get data, so definitely it will call, which one will call? S1 will call get data function. So when S1 will call get data function, so this get data function will be executed, right? Because we are calling the function. So what is that? It is saying that enter the SID and name of the student. So one message will come in a console and it will tell us to enter the value of SID and the name, right? So it will ask us to give the value to SID and name. Let's say we have given some SID. Let's say we have given roll number as 1 and name as, let's say, Ajay. Let's assume that I have given. After that, what will happen is that SID of S1 will be given a number as the roll number, and it has given a name in its name. Now after that, this code will execute because this is the next code. It is say that S2 dot get data. So now S2 will call get data. So again, it will display the message and it will say to enter SID and the name. So we'll enter the SID and the name, and SID will be stored in SID and name will be stored in name. So the SID, let's say here we have given 2, roll number 2, and the name is, let's say, Anil. Okay. So what happened when we run all 3 line of the code? So in the first line of the code, memory will be allocated to S1 and S2. And then second line of the code, s1.get data. So the function will be called s2.get data. Another function will be called, and whatever is there in the function will be executed. And then it says s1.put data. So it will call s1.put data. Who will call? S1 will call. So where is the s? This is the put data function, and it will be called by s1. And what it is doing, it is just making sure to output sid value and making sure to output name value. But from where it will get the sid and the name? It will get the sid and the name from s1. From s1. Okay, so from s1 it will take sid means 1 and name as Ajay, and it will print it. Then the next line of the program is s2.put data. Again, put data function will be called, but it is calling by s2. So what is s2 sid and what is s2 and name? So s2 sid is 2 and s2's name is Anil. So 2 and Anil is going to be printed. So I think you understood what is happening inside this particular program. Let's execute this. So once we'll execute it, so what I told you, first it will ask you to enter the SID and the name of the student. So I'll enter the SID. First I'll enter the SID as rule number 1 and the name as Ajay. Right? So this is the first student roll number and name. Then we'll enter second student roll number as 2 and the name as Anil. Now after that, what will happen? It is going to call the put function, and this put function is just displaying the value of S1 object and value of S2 object. So once we'll execute this, it is just displaying it that SID, the SID is 1 and the name is Ajay. And the second way it says that the student SID is 2 and the name is Anil. So it is just printing the value of S1 and S2. Whatever the value of S1 and whatever the value of S2, it is just printing it. So this is how it works. Okay, let me again, I'll execute. Again, I'll give the same value, roll number as 1. Let's say name is Ajay. Roll number 2, name is, let's say, Anil. Then it is going to print the first student name and the roll number, and the second student roll number, name and the roll number. So you can see here that in the student class we have created 2 objects of 2 students, right? In that way I can create many number of students what I want, and one object is containing the information of 1 student, right? So I can create many number of objects of that particular class, and it is going to be created with another concept is called class array. So that we'll see later, just later on. Okay, let's talk about S1 and S2 again. Now what is S1? S1 is an object of student class. S2 is also an object of student class. As I told you, it will look like this in the memory. Now, could you tell me what is the size of S1 and what is the size of S2? Because memory will be allocated to S1 and S2. Okay, so what should be the size? So size will be based on their data type or the data. So what is the first data here is integer SID, and the second data here is character name of 20 characters. How many characters? 20 characters. Now, so what is the meaning of that? The meaning is, for here in the GCC compiler, class के बाद 11 बजे. Okay, so what we are learning the about S1 and S2. So we are thinking of that what is the memory structure for S1 and what is the memory structure for S2. Now here in this example, I told you that S1 and S2 will be allocated the memory, but how much memory will be allocated? the memory that will be allocated for S1 and S2 is based on how much data we are putting inside. So how much data we are putting, SID, and we are putting name, right? So what is the size of SID? SID is of integer type and name is of array type. But here, sorry, the character type, and it is an array. So it is of array of 20 characters. So the size here, it will be 20. And for the size here, it should be, we have learned like integer should be of 2 byte. Here we are using the GCC compiler, which is a ANSI standard compiler. Okay, and this particular standard compiler, for the integer, it is taking 4 byte. It is taking 4 byte for the integer, and for the character it is taking 1 byte. So if for the integer it is taking 4 byte and for the integer it is taking 1 byte, so for the integer this is 4 and for the character it is 1 into 2, sorry, 1 into 20. So it will be 20 plus 4, it should be 24. So the total size of the memory allocated to S1, it should be 24 byte. Here also it should be 24 bytes of memory. Okay, let's find it out, like how much memory will be allocated. So in the program, I just want to display size of S1. Okay, size of S1. So what is the size of S1 that I want to display? And it will display in byte. Okay, so I have a function called size of function. This is the size of function, and inside that I'll put the variable. So this is my variable, right? S1 is my variable. And I think the same memory will be allocated to S2 also, because S2 is of same type, right? S2 is of same type. So I think the memory size of S2 will be also same. Okay, let's run it and try to see what is the size of S1 and S2 in the memory. Okay, so there is some semicolon is required. Okay, so you can see here what is the size here. Size of S1 is 24 and size of S2 is also 24. So now you understand like how much memory will be allocated. So here the memory that is allocated is okay. It is asking for the SID. So I am giving the student ID and the name, and again student ID and the name. Okay. Yes, I can change the code here, and you can see when we run it, now it is more visible. So the size of S1 is 24 and the size of S2 is also 24, right? So this is how actually done in the memory. Okay, this is how actually we done in the memory. Okay, so this is one program related to it. Let's go to and try to find out some more programs. Okay. Now this one is also almost the same program, but there is slight difference. Okay. And Let's see what is our difference. Now difference here is, instead of defining the function, get function and put function inside the class, can we define the function outside the class? So here we have a provision to define the function outside the class also. But that declaration should be done inside the class. Okay, declaration should be done inside the class. Now let's see what the concept of function. So I think you all know the concept of function. I am just reminding you that what is the concept of function is. Okay? We'll see the concept of function. Now function has mainly three parts. Okay. Let's say I want to create a function of adding two numbers. So what function I'll make is a sum function which will take two integer, and it is putting the value into the third integer and just returning that integer. So the return type, that also we have to mention. Now as I told you, function has three parts. Every function has three parts. It should have a return type, it should have a name, and it should have a parameters. So that is called parameter. This is called name of the function, and this is called return type. Okay, every function should have this, and every function should have three different states. So the first state of a function is called a declaration. It is also called prototype, or it is also called signature. Declaration of a function, prototype of a function, signature of a function. So what is declaration of a function? Let's say I have a sum function, I want to declare it. So how I'll declare it? I'll declare the return type, I'll define its name, and I'll put what type of parameter I want, and I'll just make it a semicolon, end it. That is called declaration, or the signature, or the prototype of a function. Second state of a function is called definition of a function. Definition of a function. Now how I'll define this particular sum function? I can define the sum function in that way that it is returning the integer, the name of the function is sum, and it is taking two value a and b, and both are of integer type. Both are of integer type. Next I'll declare it, define it. So I'll define inside the curly braces, I'll make the body of it. So what should be the body? Body will be the like this. So I'll create another variable int c, and I'll make it a and b sum and whatever the value is I am putting in the c, and I'll return c. This is called definition of a function. Okay. The third part of any function is called calling of a function. It's also called function call. How I'll call the function? I'll call the function in that way that I'll give the name of the function and I'll put the parameter, let's say 10, 20. I should know that how much parameter is required and what is the data type of that particular parameter. So the data type of the parameter is integer, it is of integer type, and just I am calling it either inside of any function or inside the main function. So whenever I call it, I can call it. So you can see that function has three different states, and function has three different what you can say, the parameters. Function should have return type, function should have name and its parameters. Function should have declaration, prototype or signature. This is required to tell the compiler This particular line is required to tell the compiler that which type of function I am going to define. This is the optional. Code. You can write it down, or you can just define the function from the beginning. If you don't want to put the signature, it is an optional. So this is an optional. But these two are mandatory. Which one? Definition of a function and calling of the function is mandatory. You have to put inside the program. Now let's go to our program. Now, as I told you that the member function, which is a function of the class, we can define it outside the class also. In the last program, we have defined it inside the class. Now we can define it outside the class. So to defining it outside the class, we have to put the signature inside the class. So this is the signature. Signature here is, it is returning void. This is the name of the function. Returning void, this is the name of the function, and there is nothing in the parameter. So it is of void. You can give void. Here also, the return type is void, means it is not returning anything, as well as it is not taking anything, and the name is put data. Now this is the end of the class. This is the end of the class. Now after that, I want to define the function. So how I'll define it? I have to define in this way. I have to write the function. So the return type of the function is void. Then I have to write the class name where it belongs. So it belongs to the student class. And then in the first class, I told you about the scope resolution operator. It will tell the compiler that from where we'll get that particular get data. So get data you are getting from the class student. It means that get data belongs to the student class. Okay, because we have defined it outside the class, we have to tell the compiler this get data is the same as this get data. So how can we do that? To tell the compiler that get data belongs to the student class by putting the scope resolution operator on it. And then the normal definition we can write. So this is the definition which we have written earlier. The same thing we can do for the another function. So I'm just removing this particular keyword. I'll let you know what is the meaning of that. Now the return type is void, and it belongs to the student class, and the function is the put data function. Okay, and then the definition of this particular function, and then main is starting, and then again main has two object, and then it is calling get data and it is calling put data in the same way which we have seen in the last example. Okay, so once we'll run it, so it will run in the same way what we have done in the last example. So it is asking for entering the SID and the name. So I'm just putting the SID and the name as same as what we have done in the last. So let's say student ID is 1, name is Ajay. The second student ID is 2, and the name is Anil. Right, and it will display the roll number and the name of the two students. The size also it is displaying what is the size of S1. So we have discussed about the size in the last example also. So this is another way how we can define the function. So the function definition I can do inside if you want. If you don't want it inside, you can define it outside also, but you have to use scope resolution in the class name. So the class name and the scope resolution is mandatory to tell the compiler that this particular function belongs to which particular class, right? So this is also clear, I think, to all of you. Now try to see some more. some more class. Okay, let's see how we can make array of it. Okay? Array of object. So we are learning one concept one by one. Okay. Uh, let's see this program and try to understand what is happening. Now this is another class which is an employee class. Okay, and inside the employee class we have employee ID, employee name, employee age, and employee salary. So all these are the data, and that is called data member. If a data belongs to the class, that is called data member. And you can see here for these data member, there is no access specifier defined. It means it is of private type. So as I told you yesterday, if we do not define any access specifier, it means that is of private type. Okay, so you can see that this data is of private type. Now inside the public part, we have some function. So the first function is get data function. Get data function is taking data like ID of the employee, name of the employee, age of the employee, and the salary of the employee from the user. And put data is just displaying the ID, name, age, and salary. Now come to the main. Inside the main, I have defined, I have a variable called int I. Here I'll take the object of employee. So I'll put the class name, and this is the object. So this is nothing but the area of object. Area of object means I have created here how many objects? So I have created 3 objects here, because the size of this array is 3. So I have created 3 objects. And then I am just putting those objects inside the for loop, and I'll call the get data with one object. So I'll take the object, first object as E0, second object is E1, third object as E2. It will go up to E2, okay? Because it is going up to the value of I as 2. Whenever the I value is equal to 3, it will get out from the loop. Okay. The same way will happen to the put data also. Here also we'll apply the for loop. Inside the for loop, we have only one statement. It is going to execute. I value will start from 0, go up to 2. Right? So here we have created object, but we have created array of objects. So it will create actually 3 objects at a time. We doesn't have to bother about it. In the same way, if we want to create the employee, let's say we have a firm and we have an employee of 100. So it is very difficult to write like this, right? It is very difficult to write like this, E1 and then E2 and then E3 and then E4 and then E5 up to how much? I have to write it up to E100 because I have 100 employees, right? So instead, C++ has given you another concept called object array. Instead of writing or creating the object of 100, let's create the array object of 100 just with the one line. Okay, because to put the 100 data, it is taking a lot of time. So here we have taken only 3. Okay, you can put it 100 also, 200 also, 300 also, whatever you want, you can put it. So this one is the example of array object. Let's run it. Once we'll run it, it will ask us to fill all the detail. What are the detail? See here, it is asking you the employee ID. Let's say the first employee is employee ID is 1, and the name is, let's say, Ajay. The age is, let's say, 30. and the salary is, let's say, 40,000. Let's say it is telling me to enter the second employee ID. Let's say the second employee ID is 2. Let's say the name is Anil, and the age is, let's say, 31. The salary is, let's say, 45,000. Now let's go to the third employee. Is asking for to enter employee ID. So I am entering the employee ID. Name, let's say, Sunil. Age is, let's say, 32, and the salary is, let's say, 39,000. Now, once I have entered, it is showing me the detail of the employee. See, the first employee detail, the second employee detail, the third employee detail, right? So how it is happening? Actually, we are creating the object, right? So how it is doing? So it is creating how many object? 3 object, right? And these 3 object is in the form of array. You know about array, right? So it is array of object. Now, this name of the array is E, right? We have created E of 3, right? Is of 3, right? So in the zeroth location, the first location, the second object, and the second location we have third object. And what is in one object? We have ID, we have name, we have age, we have salary. The same thing for the second one also, age, ID, name, age, and salary. The last one also, ID, name, age, and salary. And it is asking us to enter all these details. So we are entering all these details one by one, and it is user is entering these data, right? And we are putting these in which one? In the loop. So when we do E0, it is asking E0 dot get data, E1 dot get data, E2 dot get data, and that way it is putting all the values. So I think you understood what is the size here. The size here is of, you can see what is the size. ID of us integer type, so 4 byte. Name is of character type. I think 25 we have taken. See here, 25. So it will be 25 plus 4, 29. Then integer again, it will be 4. And the long here, it will be 8. So 29 plus 4, it is of 33. Plus 8, it will be of 41. So 41 is the size of 1. So it is of 41. It is again of 41. It is again of 41. Right? So this is of 41 byte, this is of 41 byte, this is of 41 byte. So how much byte? So it will be 123 byte of size, the total, right? So these much of memory will be allocated by this line, only one line, right? For this line, because we have created an array of object type.